Yep, I think we're live. So good evening to the people on YouTube. If you're there, it is Tuesday, the 3rd of May, 2022, and this is the Discipleship School from Christ Art Church, and we're looking at the value of servanthood this evening. So welcome to the guys on Zoom. I've already said hi to you guys, but what I'm going to do, I'm just going to mute everybody so that everybody's muted, and I'm going to pin my own face so that the only thing people can see is me and not everybody else. So there we go. So yeah, the value of servanthood tonight that we're looking at. So guys, if there's any of you on YouTube, please text me so I know you're there. That would be great. So I know there's people logged into the YouTube page. So yeah, we'll look at the value of servant leadership or servanthood, however you want to call it. Just as, because we haven't done this for a few weeks, just as a short recap. Why we're looking at these is because they really are values that Jenny and I believe are the foundation of the church, the basis of our behavior and our attitude, and it sort of governs how we live our life and how we want the church to be known. So we've looked at a few values so far. Tonight, so like I said, we're looking at the value of servanthood. So yeah, this is a very important one in church life. I don't use the word volunteer because I don't think that we have a choice of whether we really volunteer or not. In terms of the kingdom of God, it's more a case of that we are serving because God has gifted us with certain abilities and talents that he wants to use, that is placed inside of us, that we can serve the church, serve each other, serve people, serve the world we live in. So I would see it more as a servanthood as a subject, as opposed to volunteering. I'm going to start with a quote by Martin Luther King, and he said this on the subject of servanthood. He said, "Everybody can be great because everybody can serve." Now, I think that's a good place to start, really. Martin Luther King, everyone can be great because everybody can serve. And this is, like I said, what we want the people of the church itself to live by. Now, I've got a few definitions for you. We're going to do it slightly different to what we've done before, but you'll find out that as we go along. So I've got half a dozen sort of statements, really, which explain what servant leadership is loosely. But let me just read them, and then you can write them down if you are making notes. So a servant leader is responsible for helping people learn and grow. The servant leader is responsible for motivating, energizing, contributing in a purposeful way. It's not about me as a servant person, servant leader. It's not about me, but it's about other people. What can I do to serve people? What can I do to help people? What can I do to add value to other people? And the focus should always be on the well-being of other people. And yes, that will, at times, it will cost us in more ways than one. And I don't mean, again, when we say the word cost, we always think of money, but I don't necessarily mean that, even though it can do. But it will cost us our time. And there will be times when we may not want to serve. But if it's a decision that we have made and it's something that we live by, then it's something that we will do. Okay. A servant leader does not promote themselves, but they put other people first. The servant leader will listen. He's always a trustworthy person. And that servant leader is a caring person. Because if you didn't care for people, you wouldn't want to serve them. Okay. And if you didn't want to serve people, you wouldn't want to listen to them. So they're all tied up with each other. Okay. So the idea that when you're a servant leader, when you are willing to serve, that you consider others first. You think of others first, and you always look to add value to other people and always want the best for other people. Okay. Now you'd say, well, isn't that what we should be doing anyway? It should be, but in many times, in many places, it's not the case. I've got half a dozen verses from the Bible to read out to you. So if you have your Bibles there, just open the first one to Hebrews chapter 10. And let me just say, if there's any guys who are listening by way of YouTube, either send me a Facebook message or a text message or something like that, so I know you're there, and that would be fabulous. So Hebrews 10 verse 22 to 25 says, let us draw near with a true heart in full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled from an evil conscience and our bodies washed with pure water. Let us hold fast a confession of our hope without wavering, for he who is promised is faithful. And let us consider one another in order to stir up love and good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as is the manner of some, but exhorting one another, and so much more as you see the day approaching. So let us consider one another over ourselves. Let's go to the book of Mark. Let's go to the Gospels, and let's see what Jesus had to say about serving. So the first one will be Mark chapter 10. And this is what Jesus says about himself, really. In verse 45, it says, for the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give him his life as a ransom for many. You know, I've watched some people who come to church in order to get, and they don't always come to give. It's what can they get out of the service, as opposed to what can they contribute to the service. You know, it does say in the book of Ephesians that we're to come with a psalm, a hymn, a spiritual song, ready to give that to the people and encourage the people. So, you know, we should always be prepared and ready to serve. So whether somebody asks you to do something, or whether you just look and assess the situation and offer, either way, we follow the example of Jesus, that we come to serve, not to be served. Let's go to the book of Matthew 22. Sorry, not Matthew 22, Matthew 20, sorry. Matthew 20, verses 25 to 28. Matthew 20, verse 25 onwards. Jesus called them to himself and said, you know what the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those who are great exercise authority over them. Yet it should not be so among you. But whoever desires to become great among you, let him be your servant. And whoever desires to be first among you, let him be your servant. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life a ransom for many. Whoever wants to be great should be willing to serve. You know, when I watch around the world in church circles, and there's a horrendous amount of people who are looking for fame, who are looking for glory, who are looking to be noticed, who are looking for people to know their name and buy their book, and, you know, and all that type of thing. And they're looking for that fame that they can get. They can, you know, so they get well known. Whatever the motive is behind that, I don't know. And I'm not going to hazard a guess. But all I know is this: Jesus said that if we want to be great, then we must be willing to serve. And, you know, I think one of the nicest things you can find as a leader when you are with people is when people are willing to serve and take the initiative and to do things even though you don't ask them, because that is such a relief that you don't have to keep running around asking people to do certain things. Because, as you know, some people will say yes, some people will flatly refuse. But Jesus instructs us here to be willing to serve. If you go to Matthew 23, again, Jesus is speaking with the disciples, and he says in verse 11, "But he who is greatest among you shall be your servant, and whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted." You know, it's quite funny that I watch people, I've been around people who they say, "I ain't doing that. I'm too important to do that." And they won't serve in whatever capacity is needed. I can remember going to Uganda, and I was the main speaker of a conference of about 800 pastors, 800 leaders. And it was in a place called Fort Portal, which is on the southwest of Uganda, on the border of Congo. And we were there, and they put me on a special carpet in a special chair, and I got my shirt and tie on and my suit on and all the rest. I was, as I say, I was suited and booted. And as I was sat there, a wagon pulled up with all these white plastic chairs that they use in Uganda. And if anyone who knows Uganda knows it's an incredibly dusty, dirty place because it's a very dry country. And these guys were getting the white plastic chairs off the back of the wagon, and they were putting them down, and they was having to clean every chair individually because it all got this orange dirt on all the chairs before they could put them in rows for people to sit on. Well, I'm sat there thinking, just minding my own business, waiting. And I watched these guys. I thought, hang on a minute, this is ridiculous. So off comes my jacket, rolls up my sleeves, takes off my tie, and I go down and I start unloading the wagon with them, taking the chairs off, taking the string off that's tied them all together. And I start to clean the chairs with them. And I got a few strange looks from them, but you know, they were happy for me to help. Now, bear in mind, in their eyes, I'm the main speaker at the conference, and yet not my shirt off. You wouldn't want that. Yeah, tie off, sleeves rolled up, my jacket off, and I'm helping these guys clean, and I'm getting dirty in the process. Anyway, chairs were out. We did the 5-day conference, and then I'm coming to leave. And when I was leaving, they wanted to see me. So the pastor and his wife and a couple of the other leaders wanted like a debrief, half-an-hour chat with me just to see how they thought the conference had gone, and to give sort of me really their marks out of 10. That's really what they wanted to do, and that. And the first thing they said, "You're the first white guy to come, roll up his sleeves, and offer to help." And they said, "Your willingness to help spoke more than the messages that you taught from the stage." And sometimes when we are willing to serve, that speaks volumes over the words that we actually want to communicate. It's our willingness to help people and to serve people. And I didn't do it for show. I just did it because I'm that type of guy who wants to help. And I just thought, well, many hands make light work type of thing. So let me just go and muck in and help. But to them, they said, "You're the first guy who's ever done that." Most people just sit there and watch whilst we run around for them. But that wasn't my style. So anyway, so that willingness to serve people speaks volumes over things that we actually say. So let's go to the little book of John. That's 1 John chapter 3. 1 John chapter 3, verse 16 through to 18. "By this we know love, because he," that will be Jesus, "he laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. But whoever has this world's goods and sees his brother in need and shuts up his heart from him, how does the love of God abide in him? My children, let us not love in word or in tongue, but in deed and in truth." In other words, let's not talk about it. Let's just get on and do it. That's the best thing. And I've been around a lot, and I hear a lot of people with their good words and their willingness to chat and have the committee meetings about things that are going to be done. But quite often, very little is actually done. They'll talk about it, but they don't actually do anything. And being a servant is love in action. It's being willing, as Jesus did, to lay down our lives for people, to do whatever that may be, whether it be a great thing or whether it be something small. Whatever it is, we should be willing to serve. Let's go to John chapter 13. That's the Gospel of John, chapter 13. John 13, verse 15. Again, this is what Jesus says. For I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you. I've just read in Little John that Jesus laid down his life for us. In other words, he laid down his life for people. And yet he's saying here in the Gospel of John that we should do what he has done for us. So we must be willing to lay down our lives for people and serve people. You know, we should have in our mind, how can I help people? What can I do to support the leaders? What can I do to support people? What can I do to help people? You know, there's a man called Zig Ziglar. Some of you may have heard of him, but he's supposed to be leadership expert. And he said these words: if you help people get what they want, they will help you get what you want. And that's a very, very interesting thing, because many people would want you to help them succeed, but very few people are willing to help you succeed. And I find that quite interesting, again, in church life, really, that there's a lot of people who want to be served, but there aren't as many who are willing to serve. And, you know, we've got to just focus on that and say, you know what, let's just put our hands to the plow. The church that we were in South Africa, we saw this in a big way, where there were thousands of people who were willing to commit to help and to serve and to do whatever needed to be done to achieve whatever was going to be achieved. And I tell you, as a result, thousands upon thousands of people were fed, because there was shortages of food. They were clothed, they were looked after, they were housed, but not just those practical things. They were helped emotionally, relationally, spiritually, and people were served practically. So it's a full spectrum of being willing to serve. Now, I've got 11 characteristics of a servant leader before I look at 7 questions that I want to ask everybody. So the first characteristic of someone who is willing to be a servant, and you'll have to write these down and go away and think about some of them, because I'm sure they're not going to be what you expect me to say. But characteristics of a servant leader, number 1, is to cultivate a culture of trust. Cultivate a culture of trust. A person who is a servant can always be trusted. I watched a film yesterday called The Butler, and this was a black man from the cotton fields of South Alabama in America, who saw his father get shot, and then he rose through the ranks of a servant, of a butler, and he ended up going from a hotel into working at the White House. And over the years, he served 7 presidents. Ronald Reagan, he retired when Obama came in. He served John F. Kennedy. He served President Nixon. He served seven presidents. And obviously, as a butler, you're a servant. And it was interesting because over the 7 presidential reigns that were in America, he witnessed a lot of things and he heard a lot of conversations, because he would be in the room serving them drinks or food when they were having their high-powered meetings and discussions. And yet, whilst he was there and he heard them talking about going to war with Vietnam, he heard them talking about the race issue, and the blackish, all these things. But in all of it, he could be trusted to keep confidence of what he heard. He didn't go and run and contact the local paper, or in our language these days, he didn't go and put it on Facebook, but he kept quiet, and he was able to be trusted. And that's one of the first things that somebody who is a servant needs to develop, that ability to be trusted with information that maybe not very few people know. I say this to Jenny, you'd be amazed what people tell me. And I know a lot of different things that I don't say to people because it's confidential. And I don't even admit half the time that I've even had a conversation with certain people, but they've said certain things to me that I don't share. And I want to keep that because I want to be a person that can be trustworthy. So we've got to be careful in that situation, that we sometimes are going to be privy to information that we've got to keep stum about and not run around gossiping or telling people. A servant leader, number 2, as you'd expect me to say, is somebody who will encourage other people. Always looking for ways to build up people. Always looking for ways to drop them a text, say something encouraging, pat them on the back. And I don't mean this in a horrible, corny, creepy type of way where you're doing it because you're trying to curry favor with somebody. I don't mean that. But I mean, we are there to genuinely encourage people to keep going when things are tough, to keep on keeping on, as the phrase is. Yeah. Someone who will keep doing that and encouraging people all the time. Because again, when you're serving people, you'll see people who are down and depressed and all the rest of it. So we've got to just, instead of letting that affect us, we've got to try and encourage them so that we can pull them up to our level, if that makes sense. Thirdly, a servant leader always thinks of you and not me. In other words, we always think about other people first. You know, you can always tell someone who's a servant leader is when there's food to be had, who do you serve first? Do you put your plate of food? Do you lay the food on the table? Do you then serve yourself and put your own plate to one side and then everybody else can have what's left? Or do you just serve people and then you have what's left? I've seen both. I've seen some people who are the first to take the food off the table because they want to make sure they get what they want. And yet there's other people who will be so selfless, not selfish, that's the wrong thing, selfless, where they will just, everybody else helps. And you know what? If there's nothing left over, they don't eat. Just a simple example. But we are selfless in our willingness to serve. You know, you wanted to sit on a certain seat near the front. Again, I will just say that is the case. That don't happen in church because most people want to sit at the back. But, you know, there's a certain seat you want to sit at, but somebody else wants it. So you let them take the seat so that you don't have one and you end up standing up. Things like that. We are thinking of other people. And like I said before, when we think of other people, quite often it will be at our own expense, whether that be time, whether that be money, whether that be relationships. But sometimes it costs us. You know, we want to do something. I want to go somewhere, we'll do something. I can't because I'm going to do something for somebody else instead. A servant leader always sells and not tells. In other words, that's the opposite of a dictator. A dictator will bark orders at people and tell people what to do. But a servant leader will sell the idea and not manipulate people to get their own way. Yeah. So they don't use their authority to threaten people. They don't use their authority to coerce people, but they persuade people to do things instead of commanding people to do things. And I think, especially in church, if you get to the place as a leader where you have to start barking orders at people, there's something wrong because people aren't willing to serve and get involved. A servant leader, number 5, will always think long term. They always make choices for the betterment of other people. They think about tomorrow and not today. You know, we are the generation that is here now would rather spend all their money today and then worry about tomorrow. They're not bothered. I'm going to say that, in other words, they'd rather spend their dad's money today and then worry about tomorrow, instead of thinking about tomorrow and what they may need for tomorrow. It's like in church, we're thinking about the future as opposed to just thinking about here and now. So we are not thinking short term, we are thinking how will things affect people long term. So we're looking how we can serve people, how we can serve the community long term. A servant leader will act with humility. That person who's willing to serve never thinks that they are better than anybody else, but they're willing to serve people. Now, we're looking at humility next week, so I won't go into that one too much. Seventhly, a servant leader is someone who's willing to listen. You know, I remember a pastor saying to me many, many years ago, most of his job was just sitting down listening to people, allowing people to talk and allowing people to share what was on their heart and get off their chest the things that were bothering them. They needed somebody to listen to them. And, you know, we need to be people who are operating with one mouth and two ears. Now, I know some of us find that difficult because some of us have got two mouths and one ear. But, you know, we've got to develop the habit of trying to speak less and listen more. And sometimes we don't even listen to what's being said. We listen to what is unsaid. In other words, what are they not telling me that really I should be aware of? Because what they're not telling me is what I need to know to be able to serve them better. Number 8, that servant leader needs to act with empathy. You know, we need to understand people. We're in the people business. I've said this many times. And yeah, we need to accept people for who they are, you know, warts and all, because people are people. And, you know, people come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly, you know, and all that type of thing. But instead of judging people, we need to just take a step back and maybe consider walking a mile in their shoes so that we can understand where they're coming from and what they've gone through before we judge them. Because, you know, church, you know this, church is a great place where we love to judge our own people and we love to tell people off and we love to say what's wrong with people. And yet, you know, if we were more empathetic towards people, you know, we'd be a lot more understanding of that person's history, where they've been, where they've come from, what we can do to help them on their journey in their relationship with God, as opposed to shooting them. That servant leader, number 9, is someone who heals, not hurts. We should be people who contribute to the wholeness of people. We must put aside our own opinions and desires to help people grow. You know, sometimes, you know, we may not necessarily agree with what that person said and done, but, you know, we don't always have to judge them on that basis. You know, we can put our own opinions to one side, you know, and sometimes, dare I say this, some of you with children will get this. Sometimes, you know, we don't always like what our children have done. But, you know, as parents, you put that to one side because they're your son or daughter, because you want to help them. And you think, well, I wouldn't have done that, and I certainly wouldn't have said that, and I wouldn't have gone there. But you know what? I'll help you anyway. And that's the attitude we need with people, not to prejudge them or to tell them off, but to help them and to provide ways where we can provide a safe environment to help people heal. Number 10, a servant leader has to have awareness. And what I mean by that, we need to be aware of our own strengths and weaknesses of other people, and how to deal with different characters. You know, because sometimes there will be obnoxious people around, you know, and we can't just slap them down and tell them off. We have to find a way of connecting with that person, even if they are obnoxious, to try and help them. You know, that person who's always doubting themselves, who lacks a lot of confidence. we got to find ways of helping that person to grow in confidence and to deal with themselves better. So we're always thinking of, adjusting ourselves to match the other person. Because, sometimes, I've said this before, we can win the argument, but we lose the person. And sometimes I think an act of maturity sometimes is to not bother to win the argument so that we can win the person. Because sometimes the relationship with the person needs to be kept. And it's more important long-term to keep in relationship with the person. And so in so doing, we know we can help them down the line. So there's no point trying to win the argument. And again, I see this with people where they try and win an argument and they argue and bicker between them over who's right. At the end of the day, it don't really matter who's right. What matters when we are willing to serve people is that we keep in relationship with the person that we're trying to serve. And then finally, in this section, the 11th characteristic is we are always committed to growth. We are, as a person, we are committed to grow ourselves, because the more we grow ourselves, the better we will be equipped to help people. As a servant leader, we should not ever think we've arrived or that there's nothing we can learn. So, I'd encourage you to find, whether it be a podcast to listen to, or whether it be a good book or a book online to read. And if you don't know what to read, contact me, because I've got hundreds of them that I could recommend for you. But we got to be committed to growing us as people, because, the person we are today can only reach a certain group of people. But if we grow and develop over the months, the weeks, months and years, we will grow our own capacity and our own ability to be able to help more people. And I think that's what is important, that we should be willing to grow ourselves first so that we can help other people grow. So we need to be people who are committed to valuing others, because we first value ourselves. And, if we value ourselves and being willing to grow, then we can help other people to grow. That is why we are running the discipleship school. Yeah, and just look at that. How convenient is that? I have this here, and this is for the people who are going to be watching on YouTube, whether it be live now or as a replay. The discipleship school that we are running, that we're starting in September of this year, is there. Many people will think, well, I'm not called to be a pastor, or I'm not called to be a church leader. This isn't about training for the ministry. This is about developing you as a person. This is about growing, developing yourself, and hearing subjects in greater depth than you will have heard them before. And a lot of the subjects that we'll be covering, some of them you will have heard. Let me just give you some of the subjects, redemptive realities. You think, what's all that about? Redemptive realities. In other words, who we are in Christ, lifestyle of worship, pastoral care, the prophetic ministry, people skills, the Pauline epistles, the ministry of angels, the believer's authority, the blood covenant. Some of these subjects that you're going to hear, not just from Jenny and myself, but from a handful of other speakers who specialize more so in certain subjects than, say, myself. But these subjects are going to provide a grounding. It's going to expand you as a person to grow so that you can be more effective. So for anyone who is watching, it's the Christ Heart Discipleship College, and I would encourage you to contact myself. My email is keithpoole@sky.com, KEITHPOOLE@sky.com. Or you can drop me a WhatsApp message or a text message on my mobile 07880 507 433. And it's important for people to invest in themselves. You may not have ever considered doing something like this. It may have never been on your radar in terms of, I've never thought about doing anything like this. But you know what? that I will guarantee, I said this to a group in Coventry on Saturday, I will guarantee that this will change your life. So much so that the fees you pay to do the course, if your life doesn't change, I would give you your money back. That's the guarantee that I would put on this, that if you don't grow and change through the course, I would give you your money back in full. Because I know for a fact this is going to change people's lives. It's going to change your mind. It's going to cause you to grow in ways that you would never have imagined. So there's the advert done. So how can we practically become a person who serves others? 3 things very quickly. Number 1, always believe in people and their potential. Always believe in people and their potential. You know, I will give it, I've had 2 guys. Many years ago, I wanted to join a missions team for a year. And when I needed 2 references, one of the pastors that I asked for reference said to me, Keith, you'll never do anything because you stutter. That's what one pastor said to me. You'll never do anything because you stutter. He did not believe in my potential as a young boy who wanted to serve God. Fortunately, the type of person I am, that's like a red rag to a bull, because I just thought, well, I'm going to apply anyway. And I did. And I explained to the organization that what the man said. They just laughed and they said, well, just forget that. And they allowed me to join anyway. But, you know, as far as we're concerned, we've got to believe in people's potential. Doesn't matter what their starting point is. We've got to see the potential and help that person unreservedly believe in that person to help them believe in themselves. Because many people, you know, that I see in church don't believe in themselves. They don't actually think that they've got anything to offer. Even some of you listening now may not think that you've got much to offer, because people have always said to you, oh, just be quiet, shut up, sit there. There are people better than you. But that is a complete load of rubbish. God has placed in every single one of us the potential to be great. And we, as a leader, a servant leader, someone who's willing to serve people, we've got to believe in people and help that person unpack their potential. Secondly, we've got to see things from the other person's perspective. You might think, how on earth is that going to help me be a person who serves other people better? Because what I mean by that is seeing things from the other person's perspective is, you know what? Get to know people first. That's what I'm saying. Get to know them, find out what makes them tick, and intentionally connect with that person. Because you know what? When you try and connect with people, you'll be amazed at the things you have in common with other people. But if we don't ever try and see things from other people's perspective and always quite dogmatically think we know it all, we've got it right, we've got everything sussed, we miss out on some incredible relationships with people. And you know what? There's one thing I've realized now, I'm the other side of 50. You know, we don't know a fat lot, really, do we? You know, we don't know a lot. We thought we knew a lot when we were 17, 18, and all of a sudden we've forgotten everything we knew, because we suddenly now we're in a place where actually I don't know a lot and I need to learn. Now, it's not that we knew a lot or didn't know a lot then compared to now. It's more of a case of we've grown up and matured to realize there's a lot more things out there that we don't know. And we've got to help people learn and grow. And, you know, sometimes we could be wrong, and the people that we're serving actually could be right. And we've got to be willing to listen to that person and their perspective on certain things. And then the third thing in this section, before I get on to the 7 questions, is, you'd expect me to say this: create an environment of encouragement. Be the first to encourage. Be the first to genuinely congratulate people or thank people. And I honestly believe that is so important, because people always respond better when they're encouraged compared to when they're criticized. So I've been in teams where people compete with each other. talk about you behind your back. And you know, those teams weren't pleasant and those churches weren't pleasant. That is why we want to build an environment where people are free to grow and develop without being fearful of accusation and judgment. So we've got to create an environment of encouragement. There's a phrase that I heard. I don't know where I heard it, to be honest, but I heard it. He says this: when you light the candle of another, your candle still burns as bright. When you light the candle of another, your candle still burns as bright. In other words, by encouraging somebody to succeed doesn't mean that they are, if they do succeed and their candle burns bright because they're doing well, it doesn't mean that you are less important and you are dimming your own candle. We are there to encourage people's candle to burn bright as it can. Some people are scared that if I try and help you succeed, that means I'm going to fail. In fact, if it means that you do better than me, I failed. You know what? I would love everybody listening to this to succeed and to achieve more than I've ever done, because that would be great. In fact, with my own children, nothing would be better for me than all of them to achieve more and be better than me and their mom. Gandhi said, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. How about that? Benjamin Franklin said, no one is useless in this world who lightens the burden of it for somebody else. As a leader, as a servant leader, as somebody who's willing to serve other people, we have got to try and lighten the burden for other people. How can I help you? What can I do to make life better for you? What can I do to serve you as a person? And when we have that mindset, I tell you what a difference we will make in the community and the area and in our families. Now, the 7 questions that I've got for you, I want you to write them down and I want you to go away and think about them. Do this because I don't just want to you to write them down, give it 30 seconds thought, and then, you know, toss your paper in the bin. The 7 things. The first one is this: what can I do for you to help you succeed? That's a question I want you to think about. Now, who is this? Yeah, this could be about anybody. What can you do for somebody to help that somebody succeed? And I want you to think, whether it be in church, whether it be in work, whether it be in your family, whether it be in your extended family, whether it be with your neighbors. What can you do for somebody? And whoever that somebody is up to you to think about. What can you do for someone to help them succeed? Because, you know, when you help somebody succeed, that person's success actually becomes your success. And you can really make a difference in people's lives. And the second half of this question is, what do people need from me on a daily basis that they may not ask for? Because, you know, some people won't ask for help and some people won't tell you even if they had a need. So it's a bit like you're trying to second guess people in a way, because some people just, you know, whether it be their upbringing or just the way they are as people, they're never going to ask for help and they're never going to, do anything. So you've got to think to yourself, pick whoever that person is and think, what can I do? Husbands, with your wives, what could I do for my wife that they've not asked for? So they say I'm not meant to be bragging on myself, but Jenny's birthday is not till the end of June. So I bought her birthday present for something that she's been going on about that she wanted a few days ago. And it arrived through the post today, nearly 2 months early. So I gave her a birthday present 2 months early. Now, some people would think that's a bit bonkers. Why I did that was because it was something that she's wanted or needed. would have liked for months because the one that she had broken. So I just thought to myself, this would be good. What can I do that will help her? It also helps me because she stops nagging, but that's a side issue. But what can I do to help her? So I'm anticipating the need. Yeah. Secondly, is what I call the improvement question. What can I work on that will help me serve other people better? What can I work on in my own life that will help me serve other people better? In other words, how can I be more effective? How can I improve? How can I serve others to help bring out the best in them? And, sometimes we need to bring out the best in ourselves first before we can help other people bring out the best in them. How can I improve? And in what areas can I improve to serve people more effectively? Then number 3 is what I call the evaluation question. How will I know if I'm serving other people well? Because you could be doing things and you're not really effective or productive. So what can I do? How will I know if I'm serving other people well? The phrase I always say I like to use is under promise and over deliver. What we generally do as people is over promise and under deliver. So we promise people the earth and then we have to backtrack on what we've said. So we can't actually deliver what we said we'd deliver. So go beyond people's expectations of you. Go beyond people's expectations of you. You might think, well, I ain't doing that. Well, if you want to be a good servant, if you want to serve other people, and you might say, yeah, but people will take advantage of me. Yeah, some people will. But we can't use those people to stop us from wanting to serve people. Number 4. This is the blind spot question. That's what I would call it. What is it like for people who I serve? Now, we always have to be careful with this one, because as soon as we start to ask people what their opinions are of you, you'll open yourself to all sorts of abuse. So you have to be careful who you talk to. You have to have trusted people that you can ask for their genuine, reliable opinion, so that they will speak the truth, but they won't enjoy trying to destroy you. So I would never go to a church as a whole and say to them, everyone, give me your opinion of me. Because you know what, you may not like some of the opinions that people give you. However, I would go to certain people and say, what do you think? Is this good or is this bad? Do you think on this? Do you think on that? What do you think? Give me some advice. Because you know what, sometimes we don't see about ourselves what other people see. I say as a joke, we don't need the Holy Spirit when we're married, because our wives will soon tell us what our blind spots are. And I say that as a joke, but there is some truth in that. If you want an honest answer, men, ask your wives what they think, because they'll soon tell you. Won't you, ladies? Number 5 is the respect question. How can I gain value whilst adding value to others by serving? In other words, how can I grow and how can I develop whilst I'm trying to serve others? There's a man called Alan McGuinness. He says this: there is no more noble occupation in the world than to assist another human being to succeed. There is no more noble occupation in the world than to assist another human being to succeed. We are trying to help people succeed and do better as a church, as a group of people. Number 6, what can I do best? What do I do best that allows me to serve other people to the best of my ability? What do I do best that will allow me to serve people to the best of my ability? And what I say by this is we have to know ourselves. We have to know what our gifting is. We have to know what our strengths are. We have to know what our weaknesses are. Because, sometimes we think that we're good in certain areas when we're not, and we think we're bad in certain areas where we're actually good. If someone's continually criticized you for a certain thing, a lot of us will think that we're not very good at it. Well, you know what? That criticism may have come with a completely wrong motive, and it actually destroyed something that God had placed in you. So we've got to be aware of those things. We've got to be aware of what our strengths are. We've got to be aware what our giftings are, what our weaknesses are. Many of us are very quick to know what our weaknesses are because we've been told them by so many people. But not so many of us know what our strengths are, because most people don't tell us what they are. They would rather criticize us and tell us what we're not good at. But you know what? If we want to succeed and do well as people, we got to play to our strengths. For those who are football orientated, I always think of Kevin Keegan many years ago. And for those, Kevin Keegan was the England captain. He played for Liverpool. Then he went on to manage Newcastle United. And I can always remember Kevin Keegan saying he was not really one who was known as a defensive manager. He was always a manager who wanted his football team to attack. So his weaknesses, he has no defense. But many people would say to him, but he would say to people, if you score 3 goals, we'll score 4. If you score 6, we'll score 7. His strength was going forward and scoring goals. He wasn't very good defensively, but he was always very good at scoring goals. He was playing to his strengths. Now, whether you agree or disagree to his style of football management, he's neither here nor there. What I'm saying is, we as people have got to know what our gifting and what our strengths are so that we can play to our strengths. Because quite often when we play to our strengths, we're more effective. And finally, how can I serve people in a way that will inspire those I serve to also want to serve others? How can I serve people in a way that will inspire those I serve to want to serve others? When people see the genuine love of God and the willingness to serve others like Jesus did working through us, it will have an impact on their lives too. We have to replicate ourselves. We have to create or develop people who can take over from us, if I could use that expression. So we serve in certain areas, we encourage people, and they can take over from what we were doing. So that it's as if we're trying to do ourselves out of a job. If we keep encouraging and serving people, they also will encourage and they will serve, and they will have a bigger impact on people. Our church, Christ's Heart, is about the entire family of God making a positive impact on other people. That's what it's really about. The church as a whole trying to make an impact, a positive impact on people, whether that be within the church or within the community. That is why we are looking to start a parent and toddlers. That is why for the last couple of weeks, Jenny's made the announcement that we need people to come and serve in this area, because we want to have an impact in the community. We're not looking for preachers. We're not looking for anything like that. We're looking for people who can give 2 hours, 2.5 hours, one morning a week to be able to use the hall that we hire to allow moms and dads to come in with their children, their toddlers, to play and have a safe space and have a bit of a breather while the kids play. So we're not looking for It's not a nursery, so we're not going to be looking to be people who are looking after children as such, because their parents will stay with the children. We are creating a space where moms and dads can come, let the children play, sit down and have a sensible conversation with another adult, which when you've got little children, you don't always have. But we are looking to serve the community in that way. So if there's anyone interested in wanting to serve in that, speak to me, speak to Jenny. But it's a vital thing that as we serve, we start to branch out and have an impact in the area where we live. We don't want to keep this to ourselves. We want other people to know what we stand for. And, you know, that's the value of servant leadership is vital. The value of wanting to be a servant, wanting to serve people is so important, because, you know, if we don't, we are robbing people of the blessing of getting to know you. If we don't serve people, they will never get to know us. And some of you guys here, well, not some of you, all of you are worth getting to know. So when we serve people and we develop a relationship with people, they will suddenly realize what a fantastic group of people we are and what a fantastic God we serve. And they will want to get to know us, but more importantly, get to know him. So servanthood is a very important thing. And I'll just finish with the quote that I started with. Martin Luther King said, everyone can be great because everybody can serve. Greatness is found in serving people. So if you want to be a great man and woman, think about how you can serve people. So those 7 questions, as I finish, go through them, have a think, genuinely sit down and you know, get your brain working about how you can apply those questions to your life and what we can do better to serve people. So guys, for those of you who are on YouTube, it's the hour's up. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being on listening. For those who are watching this as a replay, not live, thank you for listening. Subscribe if you haven't already subscribed to the YouTube channel. And if you don't come to our church, then Christ our Church, we meet in Wordsley in the West Midlands, on Lawnswood Road, in a building called the Richardson Hall. It's just on the junction opposite the Cat Pub in Wordsley. So if anybody has watched this and are interested in joining us, then please do on a Sunday. But for those who are on for this evening, thank you for watching. I'm going to end the video now. And